Welcome, Veronica. Here we are for our initial Tango Wisdom Virtual Summit, discussions on community. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm very honored also to be the first interviewee, so I think it's a great idea.
Wonderful. So I'm here in Phoenix, Arizona. It's morning. It's a beautiful sunny day where I am. Got a little map here. So my push pin is on my location. So tell me a little bit about where you are, Veronica.
I'm in Paris, France, and it's about 6 in the evening, so it's already dark after a beautiful sunny day also, but it's very cold. So yes, I'm in Montmartre actually.
Wonderful. So I would like to put a push pin where you are. So I have a couple colors. I have white, red, blue, green, or yellow. Which color would you like?
Blue.
All right. And then where else? Like, where did you grow up so that I can also mark that on the map?
I grew up in Moscow, in Russia.
Okay. Are there any other significant places that culturally impacted you?
Yes, because before arriving in Paris, I have spent several years living in the Netherlands, and this is where I started dancing tango in a place called Nijmegen, which was fairly known at the time, the famous El Corte school. And then I also spent 2 years living in Germany, in Karlsruhe, so before moving to Paris.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about your entrance into tango, kind of your start, and possibly some of the struggles that you encountered when you first entered the social scene?
I started dancing in the Netherlands in a school that at that moment was very famous for very vibrant tango events, which often gathered a lot of young people, good dancing people from all over the place. So it was a hot place to be. And when I came to tango, I had years of previous dance experience, and I was very interested in tango as a dance. Of course, socially as well, but it is especially the dance part that fascinated me. So I came with an advantage of having a dance background, which means that I had kind of a jump start in terms of learning. It was much easier for me than for a lot of other people. Which also means that I quickly started dancing with people above my level because of my dance background, and then also could quickly progress to that level. And I also started traveling a lot and meeting all these wonderful advanced dancers from all over the place, and went to Argentina and blah, blah, blah. So actually my social struggles were a little bit different from social struggles of an average person who comes into tango with no prior dance background. My challenge was to resist the social pressure of having to dance with everybody to be considered a nice person. So when I came to tango, very quickly I became more selective than other people of similar tango experience. Because of my dance experience and my quicker progress, I filtered out the dancers that I like and that I didn't like for their dance qualities sooner than other beginners or other intermediates. And from the beginning, I felt from a part of a community a high pressure to accept all the invitations. And when you're a total beginner, that's totally fine. This is what you should do, actually. It's a lot of fun. But people would take it very badly and be hurt emotionally if at some point I started saying no to them because I didn't feel like dancing with them anymore. And the funny thing is that from the very beginning of my tango time, I have been considered an arrogant snob almost from day one because of that. And I remember I was dancing for 1 month and I overheard two people talking about me behind my back. And one was saying to the other, oh, this one, she will only dance soon with only the best ones, and she will go where she can find the youngest and the most advanced dancers. She will never dance with people like us. And I always felt hurt because of this pressure, because I strongly felt that I, even with my kind of privileged position, have a right to choose and to dance with whomever I want, just like anybody else. And I always felt this pressure coming from people who had an attitude towards me as if I were a resource to use, just because I was a good dancer very quickly. And I have, till this day, which is almost 20 years later, resisted this, because I don't think we should consider other people as a resource for our pleasure, but as people in their own right. And I learned to say no in quite of a very clear fashion earlier than most people I know in their tango trajectory, because this is what basically protected me. Also, I must say that I am an extremely introverted person. I'm probably the most introverted as it comes. And you wouldn't say this because I also have a strong extroverted side, but this means that I cannot simply accept dancing with just anybody. It totally freaks me out. I am a very reserved person on the inside. So this was my strategy to also protect myself. And a lot of people, because I behave in an extroverted way in the milonga, and I am outgoing when I feel safe and I am cheerful, they often do not realize how hard it is for me being an introvert in such a cheery place where everybody is trying to, be very outgoing. So the funny thing is that the problems that, for example, a lot of my students struggle with socially are the opposite of the problems I struggle with. They struggle with the fact that nobody dances with them, that people do not accept their invitations, that they have a hard time attracting attention of advanced dancers, whereas I was much more struggling with the pressure of other people wanting to dance with me. Of course, I also had my struggles of wanting to dance with a really wonderful dancer and him not seeing me because I wasn't yet at the level that was interesting to him. But this was less hard for me because I knew I would get to that level eventually than battling the pressure of other people coming to me and acting offended and insulted when I say no. And it happens to me until this day. I could go to a milonga and somebody would invite me and I simply kindly say no. And sometimes a person would make a scene, or they would insult me, or they would say hurtful things like, oh, you are the one dancing only with your pals, aren't you? And you sit there and you look at this person and you go like, are you listening to what you actually just said to me? Why do you have the right to choose but not me? And this is my kind of struggle from day one, and also the reason I wrote many articles about it, and the reason I still keep defending my own right to choose and the right of people who have reached a certain advanced to professional level to also choose their dance partners and not serve. We are not food to be served.
I really enjoyed how in your articles you say that social dancing is not a community service.
Exactly.
And there's a theme throughout your writing about finding your joy in the dance, and that's our right to do. And so what you're describing to me is exactly that, whether it's that you have people wanting to dance with you and you're not wanting to dance with them, or you want to dance with people and they're not dancing with you.
Mm.
So how do you help your students with the struggles that they have, besides the writing of these, which are fantastic?
What I try to make them understand is that I try to take them to make them take the position of that other person that they are offended by or resentful of. Because when I went through situations that I wanted to dance with somebody, but that person wouldn't notice me, I never had the reflex to be negative about that person, or to call him snob, or to despise that person. I would ask myself a question: what does this person find interesting in partners that he or she does dance with? And I would observe, and it could be many different things. And if, for example, I saw that that particular dancer would only dance with very young girls who wore short skirts and had blonde hair, well, that was the end of it, because I wasn't fitting the profile. And so there was no point for me feeling resentful about it, because I gave him all the right to desire this. If this is what he wants, I can have an opinion about that, and I can maybe be condescending about it, but that's his right, just as it is my right to choose somebody else. And so at this moment, when I felt there was an incompatibility of some reason, I would not keep pushing. I would try to take my attention somewhere else and focus on something else and focus on somebody else. And this is what I try to do with my students. First, I try to make them understand what could be the possible reasons of the other person, to really put themselves in his or her shoes and understand that it's not snobbery. Understand that they have a right to have reasons that sometimes have absolutely nothing to do with you. And sometimes they do have something to do with you. Accept that, respect that right, stop resenting it, stop calling this person ugly names just because he doesn't want or she doesn't want to dance with you, which I find a very stupid thing. And especially when you feel you hit a wall, for example, because it will take you 2 years to get to his level, or because you will never be blonde with long hair or whatever. Focus on somebody else, on something else. And the funny thing is that people manage to display this kind of behavior in many other domains in life. For example, if you are in love with somebody or attracted to somebody, the moment you hit a wall, unless you are really neurotic, at some point you say to yourself, well, he's not into me, she's not into me, this is where it ends. That's life. And maybe you grieve for a while, but you don't necessarily despise that person just because of not choosing you. Whereas in tango, sometimes people start despising people for not choosing them. And I find it very detrimental. I find it very unintelligent and detrimental to the atmosphere, social atmosphere. The fact that I don't reciprocate doesn't make me a bad person. I don't see the logic in it. And in sex or in love relationship, we kind of learned already that this is how it works. Okay, he's not into me, she's not into me, there is no compatibility. Okay, let's focus on something else. I won't pursue it. I won't tell everybody that this person is a snob because he doesn't want to make love to me. But why would I do this in tango terms? This is what really bothers me sometimes. Sorry, I think there's somebody at the door. Can you give me 2 seconds? Just open the door.
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And another thing that I tell my students when it's a clear case of incompatible levels in dancing, they want to dance with somebody much higher than their level, and those people are not interested in them yet. is to try to stop this downward spiral of resentment. Because I tell them, you cannot despise the person and want to be like that person. That those two cancel each other out. You either want to be with and like this person, or you despise this person, but it also means you will stay where you are. And so if you want to share an experience with somebody you admire for certain qualities, keep this admiration going. Because the day that you will be closer to his level, he will feel that admiration, or she, and it will fuel your connection. And you will say to this person, oh, you know, for 2 years, I've looked at you and I've seen you dance and I thought you were so wonderful. People don't realize how much this oils the social interaction. I had guys in Paris wait 3 years until they gathered the courage to invite me, because I'm a teacher. And they would tell me, oh God, for 3 years I didn't dare. And finally I dared, because I also saw, you saw me, and you made it also possible for me to make this step. And I'm so nervous. And I think that's wonderful. I think people should aspire to people that they admire and not dismiss them. And with most my students whom I can have this talk, they do understand and they start really seeing things in a different way. But with others, they're so hurt by the rejection, they cannot go past that hurt. That's very difficult. And this is something maybe rather for a psychotherapist or a psychologist to work with, because once you have this build-up wall of resentment that everybody's rejecting me, something else needs to happen. You cannot, it actually prevents you from becoming a better dancer also, because you're so focused on that hurt.
And so finding the dance is also finding the joy in your daily life. There's a huge comparison or an interrelationship in how we behave in tango and in our daily life.
Yes, and I remember at some point I started noticing in my own life and in my own behavior a very interesting dynamic. I started noticing that in tango I was pushed by tango as a phenomenon to always look for the things that I like and to make the choice and to make myself happy by choosing things that bring me joy and pleasure and a sense of freedom and a sense of well-being. And I started realizing that in certain other domains in life, I didn't have that same strategy, because I would do things that others thought I should be doing, or that I myself imagined I should be doing, whatever. And I said to myself, this is really interesting. Those domains now feel very restrictive, because once I stop following my joy, even in small things, there is always inevitably a backlash of negativity, of bad experience, of feeling unfree. And so consciously I started liberating those other domains by, from little things to big things, following what gave me joy. And unfortunately, there's always a period where things come crumbling down. So if you have built your life on a foundation of obligation, this foundation will collapse and you will be left in rubble, and you would have to clean out the rubble, rebuild the foundation, decide what kind of building you want to build that building, live in it. And this is why tango sometimes is a catalyst for a huge personal transformation that is in the first time not necessarily very pleasant. It can be very, very profound and very disconcerting. And the only thing that helps is to hold on and to persevere and to arrive at the point where that new building starting to take place and shape. And then you will see it was absolutely worth it from the beginning. Yes.
And that can be a very vulnerable,
Oh, yes.
Going into having your whole world go to rubble, and possibly both in your personal life and in your tango world as it is reflected, and being in a social atmosphere, like it can be scary to go back into that social atmosphere as all this vulnerability is occurring in your regular life. So what would be some of your advice to people that are perhaps going through something like that, and how to use the social community of their, social dance world to help with that?
Now, the first thing to understand about going through such a transformation is that it is a real personality transformation, which means that the person that walked into this transformation will not be the person that walks out of the transformation. That means that in certain situations, you will find yourself behaving differently and maybe not the way you want, triggered in a way you have never been triggered, vulnerable in a way you have never been vulnerable before, doing stupid things, doing things you've never done before, doing humongously courageous things. You have to realize that and to allow this to happen and to know that this is what is going to happen and you cannot protect yourself. But in order to keep going, you have to create within this communal, this little tango society or big tango society you live in, you have to have a supporting network of a few people, sometimes one or two even are enough, that will stay with you throughout the whole process and who will love and support you throughout the whole process. So make real friends. What is really nice about tango communities in general is, although when you go through such a transformation, it can be extremely visible to other people. So this in itself, it's kind of a bit shameful sometimes for the person, because everybody sees what's going on, especially if you are, for example, in a breakup with another person of the same community, or getting together with somebody and it's not working, etc., etc. So you have to be prepared that it will be visible. But what I've noticed is that people in tango generally are really kind and supportive and warm. So although they will notice this vulnerability, their urge will be to help you. And I felt it just 2 days ago. I went to Milonga after teaching 6 hours in 2 days of technique class. And when I come out of teaching technique class by myself, my focus is on what everybody's doing wrong, because I really have to be very concentrated and correct everything and analyze everything at once. So when I come to Milonga, I'm a bit tired, but I'm also still in this focusing on analyzing everybody's dancing. And so I was sitting there and found that everybody was dancing badly and everybody was doing all these kind of horrible things. But this is normal, this is focus. So I couldn't relax, and I was just sitting there and just being myself, introverted, basically just sitting there. And I think at least 5 or 6 people came to sit to me to talk to me, just to see if I was okay. 2 or 3 people came and they were like, "Okay, Veronica, you seem a bit sad." And after that, until today, people were sending me messages on Facebook like, "I saw you Sunday. You were a bit, you looked a bit alone. Were you okay?" And those were people, those were students, friends, students, people I hardly know. And I thought that was so sweet. Of course, for me, it's also a bit exaggerated because I'm kind of a public figure, being a teacher in Paris and a known person and blah, blah, blah. But I think this proves that in general, a healthy tango community is an extraordinarily supportive environment. And I remember one of my best friends, she was going through a rough separation, and she was feeling extremely vulnerable. And she came one evening in her favorite milonga, but she felt she was so completely out of it. It made her very sad. So just right there, she started crying. She couldn't help herself. And the amount of people that came and held her and went with her to, you know, to not be in everybody's side, and the amount of people they gave her love, that was just so amazing to see. But for this, you have to have a community where people are fairly familiar with each other, like each other, and where there is a sufficient amount of healthy interactions. Yeah, so I think for that person, I would say, first of all, be aware. Shameful things will happen. This is how it is. This is transformation. You don't know where you're going. Create a support network of 1, 2, 3, 4 people that you can always rely on. Trust others to help you also through this and not to judge you. And just persevere. Because when you come out on the other end, the joy and the pleasure you will experience will be renewed tenfold. And sometimes you would need maybe to make a break from tango. That depends very much on the situation you are going through. If it's a breakup with somebody who is in that same scene and you need to not see this person for a while, this is what you will have to do. But once you kind of went through the climax of the hurt, it will get much, much better.
So you speak a lot of self-reflection and being able to reflect on what's going on for yourself as a powerful tool to then be able to approach socially. And in our dialogue, you had written that the more connected you are to yourself, the more you're able to connect to others.
Yes.
So how are some of those ways, just in a basic practice, you know, whether it's as you're teaching individual classes, you know, how do you bring that in as a teacher to help your students understand that this is a major part of being able to continue in a social interaction and have it be something that can help you through those transitions?
Well, I try to make them use as a practice or as a tool is to always check up on how they're feeling in a certain situation. And now I'm not talking about learning movement, whereas it's basically the same mechanism, it's just a different thing you're checking. But in a social setting, very regularly check yourself and check your state and ask yourself, how am I feeling about what is going on? And when there is a buildup of negative emotion or negative energy, try to understand what is going on. And instead of going into a downward spiral, which is very common, very tempting, yeah, I'm not invited, nobody loves me, nobody wants me. Instead, in those moments, try to refocus on something else to get out of that spiral. And those things can be really silly, like get up and walk to another side of the room. And this is something that I have tested on myself, because being an introvert, I have a tendency to just sit in my corner and be in my thoughts. And if these are detrimental thoughts and depressive thoughts, they go like deeper and deeper into their spiral. So I've noticed at some point that the simple fact of getting up and moving my body and going to get a drink or talk to somebody or just walk around gets me out of this. And then I can assess the situation from a much clearer, more lucid point of view. And I also would tell them in situations where they feel something is off, but they can't really put their finger on it, to check for things such as, are they feeling pressure from somebody? Pressure to dance with them, pressure to comply, pressure to do things a certain way, pressure to like certain things. And how do they feel about that pressure? And if they feel uncomfortable, help them find ways to relieve that pressure. That could be by learning how to say no to an invitation. That could be by saying to a man who is trying to teach you steps in the milonga, sorry, I don't think milonga is an appropriate place to teach me steps. Anything from minor annoyances to abusive dynamics. So always check and be aware of your inner state and how environment affects you. And also, before drawing conclusions based on what is happening outside of you, try to find conclusions based on what is happening with you. For example, when you go to a milonga with the intention of having a great time, but you kind of think that other people owe you that great time, and something good is not happening, nothing much is happening, you will start resenting other people. If consciously, before going to milonga, you bring yourself in a celebratory kind of mood of at once expecting good things, but not demanding them from the world, but kind of be open to it being mellow, maybe very good, maybe not so good, but it's not a catastrophe. When you bring yourself, when you tune yourself consciously like an instrument to this neutrally positive expectation, usually you have a good time in milonga, even if you don't dance maybe as much as you want, but you will leave feeling fulfilled. If you go into milonga feeling hunger for social interaction, good dancing, perfect embrace, perfect DJ, perfect space, you will find hundreds and hundreds of reasons of criticizing everything and everybody around you. And you will probably be right, because the thing about this negative attitude is that you are always right. There are always tons of things that are really bad. And people are snobbish, and DJs rubbish, and the space could be better, everything. And to get yourself out of this, you have to turn inward, and you have to prepare yourself. Prepare your mood before going into milonga. Prepare your mood before practicing with a partner. That's very important. If you go into a practice, one-on-one practice with a partner, and you just expect that partner to do what you say and be the perfect partner for you, it will end up in a huge quarrel. If you go, you really have to tune your inner state to be socially happy. Yeah.
Beautiful. So this is wonderful for those that are going to milongas, for myself included. And now I want to change a little bit to, you're a big part of your milonga community and your teaching community, and you're a co-founder in Tango Mon Amore in Paris. So how does that all come into play in the organization of a community like that, in working with the other members of your studio and community organizers?
Well, I must say that I myself have never been interested in organizing much. I have participated in organization to see how it would feel. And my conclusion was it's not something that is interesting to me. What I want is to dance and to teach and to perform. So the partnership that I have with my colleagues is based on an idea that we would like to offer two poles of teaching, the regular couple classes that are standard formula, and my technique classes that I give by myself that cultivate individual competences. And so people, by buying the pass to our classes can basically have both, if they want, or one. And we rent a space just for the hours that we need, and that's it. So I don't have a school, I don't organize milonga, I'm not interested in either of this. I'm not organizing festivals, I'm not organizing marathons. I have organized, together with my colleagues, several tango holidays, whereas my organizing role was actually fairly modest. I was responsible for the artwork and the promotion and the registration, etc. Because I don't like organizing. That's not my thing. And I am not interested myself personally in building any community. That's just not my thing. I want to dance, and I want to work with people who want to improve their dancing. And this group of people is always a minority, which means I am kind of a very niche oriented person in both my dancing and my teaching. And so people who want to work the way I work, I'm very lucky to be in Paris. This group is large in Paris because we have a very large tango community. In other communities, it could be 1, 2, 3 people. So I wouldn't be able to survive as a teacher. But I'm not at all kind of a teacher that would do regular weekly classes and build a community and build a school and entertain people. And I'm so grateful that there are a lot of people who are like this, because I would hate it, absolutely. This is not my thing. But I have met a lot of people who do this very well. And often I meet them because they organize workshops with me and with my partner. And I see their work, and I see the amount of work that they put into building in community, and they put into developing and making it work for everybody, and try to embrace all the difference. And I think it's tremendous. I'm so happy these people exist. Because if everybody was like me, it would be, it's just basically like only training for the Olympics and never having any football team play for amateurs, you know? So that's all I can say.
Well, I think that goes along to being able to find your joy in what you're speaking of.
Exactly.
You know what you have to offer.
Yes, and I've noticed with I have had experience with giving regular weekly classes. I have organized both big festivals and marathons once or twice, and then those tango holidays. I have tried all of it with the idea of, okay, I will assess how much joy it brings me, how much I like it. And I very soon, very early, I knew organizing is just not what I like. But I do like working in a team. So I do like working together with other organizers when I teach or perform or give conferences. And I really appreciate when people are strong in that domain, because I think tango needs people who are professionally strong in organizing things. That basically avoids a lot of struggles and politics and immature behavior.
We need a lot of diversity in both our dances and in ways that we collaborate with and have as part of the community.
Yeah. And for me, I was very clear at some point that I am most happy to work with people who have a certain focus on improving their dance, who are interested in dance primarily and secondarily in social. Because in tango you have social dance, and so at every point in your life you will give priority to one or another. It can even change from one day to the other. And when people have a very important priority on dance, I can work with them to my fulfillment. If people take classes so that they can have fun in the milonga, but they're not necessarily interested in doing it well, there's not much I can do for them. They will just annoy the hell out of me. I would be just like, what are you doing? Just, if you know, you don't want to improve. I'm one of these teachers that you want to improve, I'm your person. You don't want to improve, go do whatever you like. And so with this attitude, you can never fill regular classes, because you either have a large group of very motivated and fairly advanced already people who have this ambition, or you have very small groups and you can't live from it. But when I do my very special technique workshops with a specific theme, and this is how I work, and people know that this is how I work, and when they do 6 hours of technique with me, they actually will understand what it is about and they will be able to do it. Then I get a large group of people who come from other cities, other countries, especially for that weekend, and I fill the groups and I can live from it. And then, of course, also the traveling workshops. And I know that when I come to a certain place, alone or with my partner. People know what I'm worth, what they can get from me, and there I get very motivated groups, and it's very fulfilling, although it's not regular or weekly. People still really really progress.
So full immersive to grow and develop the dance.
Yeah, but on the other hand, also I do realize that this position and my teaching and everything I stand for also cultivates for other people the what is snobbish about tango. But to this I always say that if tango was meant to be a dance where everybody just happily danced with everybody, irrespectful of everything else, it would never be the tango that we know. It would be a much easier dance to learn. It would never be close embrace. It would never be too sad music. And it would never give that profound connection that we all so get addicted to, so crave. It would be just like having fun in a disco. And there are plenty of social dances that satisfy just that. So to some people who insist on making everybody dance with them, I say, well, choose another dance. You just chose the wrong dance. Go do, I don't know, whatever. Another social dance where you can invite everybody and everybody will be happy with you because you don't have to display so much skill. Tango nowadays is a very skill-based dance, and a lot of people resent this, but this is the reality. Yes, it is a snobbish dance. It is. And I'm one cultivating it, and I'm the snob number one, and I will be till the end, till the day I'll die. So from the day I started till the day I finish.
Yeah, putting yourself as a priority, this dance that is something that you want to engage in, and it feeds you. And it's from there, it sounds like, Veronica, that you're more capable to give what is truly authentic from you to those people, instead of spreading yourself so thin and diluting the passion that you have for this dance.
Exactly. And this is something I realized fairly early in my tango career, that if I just focus on what I love most and what I want to teach and how I want to do it, there will be always people who will want exactly that. I will not have crowds of 100 people in my classes. I might not have a huge business or whatever, but I will do exactly what I want. And at some point, when there are moments where you have very kind of uncertain time, will people show up? Will somebody want this? At some point, I remember someone saying to myself, you know what? I'd rather eat less than do what I don't like. And that kind of completely relaxed me. I was like, I'll just not eat if I don't have enough money until there is again money, but I will not make concessions because I don't want to do this job without being able to be passionate about it and without it being rewarding. And what I notice is that among colleagues, I'm often one of few people who have still an enormous amount of joy in just going out dancing after almost 20 years of tango. And I have never, ever for one day lost it. And I think the reason for this is that I have been always so vigilant to protect that joy of mine and to not make concessions, to not succumb to pressure, to not try to fold into the expectations of others, to be less snobby. And I think that allowed me to still be very excited about tango, because the moment I start the class, I'm going like, oh my God, this is what I'm teaching. This is what I'm dancing. This is just so cool. And I can't stop. And people go like, this is the end of the class. You have to leave the room. And it's like, wait. And I think I'm doing it for me. And if there is one person, I will do it for one person. And I'll just eat less.
It's beautiful. It's keeping it rich.
Yes, and I also think that it's not the way everybody should be doing this, in a sense that if you want a business in tango, it's just for me a legitimate reason. And I think we need real good business people in tango, business in terms of entrepreneurship, in terms of doing things professionally, doing things passionately professional. Organizing passionately well, organizing professionally well, marketing professionally well. A lot of organizers and teachers in tango come from other domains, and they start doing things in tango, and often they have no professional experience in doing organization, for example, in organizing something or in teaching. They are wonderful dancers, they start teaching, they have never taught before, they have to find it all out for themselves. And so this gives a lot of amateurism in tango, and a lot of wars and troubles and conflicts and immature behavior. So I think tango is growing, it's still, it's developing also this side, and people need to become more professional in every way in tango. And I think also then we will start leaving behind that myth, or which is often reality, that you cannot really live from tango. You can, just like from any other art. It's not easy, but it is definitely possible. But you have to offer something.
And you have to know what it is that you have to offer, as you've said.
Exactly, and what you like and what you can be valuable, worthwhile, and valuable for other people, whether it's my way of doing things, or whether it's organizing a school where it's a real nest for people, where you cultivate a community, where you cultivate beginners, where you take people from day one through several years of development. I know people who are passionate with this process, which drives me mad. It's completely not my thing. It's like, oh, please go away, leave me alone. But I know people who love this. They create this nest, and they see people like plants grow and bloom. And I think it's wonderful that we have people who are interested by those other things. And they might not cultivate the best dancers of the world, but they cultivate the community from which then I can say, okay, you come with me, we'll make you a better dancer.
That's great. So thank you so much for sharing that. It's very,
my pleasure.
extremely affirming to see and hear your perspective on how okay it is to find your niche, to say that this is what I want and this is what I offer. We don't have to be everything to everybody, or spread ourselves out so thin that the juicy quality that does addict us to tango will dilute.
Yes, and also I think a very important part of it is respect, that not everybody is like that, not everybody is like me, and I'm not like everybody, and we have to respect those differences, because there are all kinds of people who come to tango. Tango does filter them out, but at the same time we have this enormous richness of expression and desires and inclinations and joys, and everybody has to find out what is their joy, instead of trying to bend other people to their expectations. And this is something that is also a transformational process for many people, to start off in a position where they kind of expect everybody to love them, and then they go through a transformation and go, yes, well, if I know what I like, I'm much more capable of finding other people who like the same thing. And also for me, pressure doesn't work. And as a very solitary introvert, any type of societal pressure for me is a no-no. If I feel too pressured in a community or a group or a society, I just leave. So the fact that I remained in tango for all this time means that tango is capable to giving me a place, being what I am, and still be community. So this, I think, tango is marvelous because of that. It's really marvelous.
And a dance of respect.
Yes.
Around us.
Yeah.
Thank you, Veronica.
You're welcome.
An absolute pleasure to chat with you and hear from you. So I want to honor our time together. So I'm going to, unless there's any last little bit that you would like to give us,
I can talk about it for hours and hours and hours. So I'd better stop and just let you ask me another question, because otherwise I will never stop. It's like teaching.
Thank you, Veronica. And
you're welcome. Thank you.